Today we're going to talk about EIPs.
So an EIP is an Ethereum Improvement Proposal. Pretty much it's like an outline of some kind of change we want to make to the protocol to either fix or improve on some type of thing.
We do this all the time in Web3 when you go to a website and say you want to mint an NFT. You have to sign something saying that this is my wallet address and I control it, and I'm proving that I control it by signing something. So really what this is, 4361 is a standardized way to do that.
I saw an article on MetaMask that they want IP addresses and other information.
Anybody online should expect that anything that can be tracked is going to be tracked.
I think in light of what's been going on in the space, having a little more visibility in actors from a compliance standpoint wouldn't hurt until, confidence builds back up in the space.
Hey everybody, welcome to Missing Links with John, Brock, and myself, Stephen King, where we discuss what's missing in Web3 architecture. For feedback, please go to missinglinks.fm, send us an email, give us some feedback on what we discuss and what you'd like us to cover next week. All right, let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Missing Links with John, Brock, and myself, Stephen. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hey, how was Thanksgiving, everyone?
Pretty good.
Awesome.
So John, I eat an Italian hoagie every night for most nights of the year. I would say, what do you say, Brock? 300 nights a year? And
every night that I've seen you, yes.
So I'm pretty predictable in terms of my eating habits. Well, I mean, it's better than Scoops. But Thanksgiving food, I could eat that instead of an Italian hoagie. But my wife won't cook Thanksgiving every night for that many nights in a row. So it's a real predicament. So I need to find that meat company that packages meats and sends them to you.
Boar's Head?
No. There's a subscription service for meat. Do you guys know about that? Butcher Box. Yeah. So like that, but for Thanksgiving food. Anyway, it's tangential to our conversation today. Today we're going to talk about EIPs, and Brock would be happy to know there's a lot of NFT related things in there. And actually that makes me pretty excited because I'm coming around to NFTs, and these make me come around even more. So where do you guys want to start? I've got a bunch. You guys probably have a bunch, but you guys pick one and we'll go there.
Well, I think before we get there, we should talk about what an EIP is. So an EIP is an Ethereum Improvement Proposal. Pretty much it's like an outline of some kind of change we want to make to the protocol to either fix or improve on some type of thing. And they're broken up into different kind of subcategories. Primarily you have core, which is kind of more the peer-to-peer stuff, the networking. You have some of the interface stuff, the ERC, which is more token driven, meta and informational EIPs, which is more around how do you understand kind of metadata and the data within smart contracts and how you access certain things. So it's a community driven thing. So you have the idea where you kind of come up with what you want to do. This is not typically tracked within the EIP repository. Anyone can submit it. So once you have an idea, you kind of formulate it, you can draft it and actually mark it as review, where you'll get the community to kind of review it and see if it's worth introducing and actually kind of, I don't want to say voting on, maybe Brock can give a better word to that, but kind of seeing if it's really worth actually rolling it out and actually implementing and adopting it. And at that point, it's considered a living EIP. One that we all know is, ERC20 tokens, which is kind of the standard token built on top of Ethereum. And there's a whole bunch of them. But Brock, anything you would like to add to that?
No, I thought that was pretty great. I don't know any more of the details of how things move from a proposal to an accepted proposal. Other than, the idea is there's comments from the community and consensus is reached somehow. I'm not entirely sure what that process looks like.
We should find that out, because that was exactly what I was going to ask you guys.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to find clarity on that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that works, because in like a DAO, you would vote with your shares of the DAO essentially. I don't know how that works with Ethereum at a foundational level.
Yeah, I think the voting is done kind of via, I don't know. I think it's kind of subtly voted on GitHub, because I know a lot of those proposals. That's where it's kind of like the central repo. That's kind of where they go to live and die at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
John, what kind of experiments are you running? What is that behind you?
That's a tree. I'm trying to keep a tropical tree alive on the East Coast.
Got it. Okay.
So he says.
You don't ask too many questions.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think I might have to ground these headphones because I get shocked every time I wear them. It's crazy. The Apple new AirPods Pro, and it's like zap right in my ear. Okay, so did you guys? We don't have to go into this one, but did you guys see the Soulbound NFT EIP?
I did not.
I've seen that previously. Which
So there's one. I don't know the number of it, but basically, so I read a blog post from Vitalik, and it actually seemed kind of cool in the blog post, but I'm starting to rethink it because the use case that they give is, it's basically Soulbound NFT is one that's tied to most likely an individual, but I guess it could be a particular device maybe too, or maybe there's other use cases, but it's like if I had something that was very specific to me, like a plane ticket, and if that was an NFT, if American Airlines wouldn't let me resell it because it's an international flight and I've identified myself, whatever it is, it's tied to me intrinsically, and I can't just go and sell it. I think that if China were to use something for their social credit score, this would be the EIP or the device to do it, because I don't really see any other use cases other than, I mean, I think for like the airline example, it doesn't really hold, because you figure we're going to solve the identity thing at some point. I was just curious if you guys had looked at it.
I have not, but I think the last thing China's worrying about right now is their social credit, considering everything going on.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's a couple of, we can go to the NFT ones, but we should talk about that at some point, because there may be legit use cases that I'm overlooking.
Yeah. So there is a crazy amount of like NFT proposals that are actually pretty interesting. So there's a few that we'll talk about with royalties, but one I do want to kind of just mention right now, prior to us kind of, moving forward, is thinking about like a single sign-on proposal. So the idea is, I'm trying to find the so it's EIP 4361. The idea pretty much that you can sign in with Ethereum,
even off chain, right?
Yeah, which is huge, because the whole idea is that your wallet's your identity. So it would only make sense that you would kind of build and actually sign in and kind of, prove yourself without having to go through, some other, auth provider. I think that's really cool. Brock, did you have any thoughts about like how you could see this implemented in real world?
How would it work, Brock? Do you have an idea of that? That would be a helpful start as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially like we do this all the time in Web3. When you go to a website and say you want to mint an NFT, you have to like sign something saying that like this is my wallet address and I control it, and I'm proving that I control it by signing something. So really what this is, 4361, is a standardized way to do that, specifically for authentication into, say, dApps. And it's already implemented. There's like front-end libraries, I think sign in with Ethereum, SIWE. Yeah, if you Google that, there's a whole bunch of like React libraries built around this already, and it integrates with a lot of major front-end development protocols. It's very cool.
So it shows that it's not living yet, but it is in review. So are these type of beta libraries?
Yeah, the libraries are out there, because at the end of the day, even if hypothetically 4361 doesn't get put into the standards for Ethereum, people can still use it. So basically, people are already using the standard without it being officially adopted.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of sign-in, so I saw a MetaMask an article on MetaMask. I know you can't talk about this, John, but that they want IP addresses and other information. Is that just? I just saw the headline for it. Is that FUD or is that real?
I'd say it's FUD. Yeah, Brock had a really strong point on that earlier.
Yeah, since I can talk about it all I want. Yeah, this is. You should. Anybody online should expect that anything that can be tracked is going to be tracked, and the IP address is like the most nominal thing that's gonna. Everybody's got it, whether or not you know what they do. So all that's really changed.
The backbone of the internet. Yeah, it's just the backbone of the internet. If you don't have an IP that is being transmitted between routers and different switches, you don't have internet. So it's a very nominal component.
But yeah, so for Infura, I don't know if they've been using the IP address previously. I have always assumed that they would for, say, verifying API requests, preventing themselves from like denial of service attacks, et cetera, et cetera. These are just like common things that every service does. And so my impression is So my impression is all that's happened is they updated their terms of service to better reflect that. So it wasn't like anything's changed. They're just like putting in the documentation, just trying to highlight to make sure it's extra clear for anybody who reads it.
Exactly. That's all it is. It's just a better reflection of something that's already there. I think in light of what's been going on in the space, having a little more, and this is my own opinion, having a little more visibility in actors from a compliance standpoint wouldn't hurt until confidence builds back up in the space, especially going into a winter.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that was a bit of a tangential topic, and I didn't mean to derail us, but I like the sign-in with Ethereum. I think that's a great idea. So basically, they're just going to take some variables and package it up into like a non-slike type of transaction, and that's going to be that's going to be a standard for using sign-in both on and off chain. Do I understand that correctly?
Not a transaction, just signing data, and then this one specifically is tying into ENS. So it's saying like using your ENS profile, you sign a set of data, and that set of data is standardized to say that I'm authenticating into this application.
Speaking of on ENS, I just quickly, John. Well, actually, you go first because I want to. That's a good transition into one of the ENS hierarchical domains. I have a question about that, but you go first.
Yeah. So how I best see this EIP is, you guys remember when we were working with 3box and we were having sign-ins that were private? All of that verification was due purely on signatures for private and public data. So to your point, this mechanism exists. This is more of a standardization, but we've already seen it used before with 3box and any type of dApp that has pseudo private and public information via profiles that are built off a wallet address. So right. Just to put that little plug in there.
And they're not going to go. I was thinking, well, this will put those guys out of business, but I guess it won't, because there's going to be Web 2 and Web 3. They're going to coexist. So there'll still be a use case for those private logins.
Ideally, there would be a bridge in the future, maybe a bridge somehow, but yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like 3box, they rolled into Ceramic now, so it's a different thing, and they're focused more on the decentralized storage aspect behind a profile. So like once you're authenticated, having secure storage that's decentralized on top of IPFS. And then the guys at Magic.link, they're the ones who are like bridging the whole Web 2, Web 3 login. So it's single sign-on. You can do it with a wallet address, or you can do it with your email or Google or Facebook or whatever other provider. And it's all one interface.
And are they just resolving basically everything into an address? Are they using that as the foundation, or how are they doing that?
So the way these like single sign-on implementations work is it's the application developer trusts the single sign-on provider. So it could be Magic.link, it could be Auth0, Okta, whatever it is. And so you trust that third party to provide you with a valid like authentication, like to handle all of that. And so they can use any form of means on the other side to authenticate a user. And just pass along like, yes, this user is validated, they've authenticated, and each third party provider has different formats for that.
Cool. So this one we don't have to stay on too long, but 4834. So these domains, I didn't know that like Stephen.eth doesn't resolve to an address through ENS currently. That seems crazy that it doesn't, but
it does.
Well, no, it said like it basically said like they use the example of die.token and they give you the address and says ENS where the names are simply keys to be hashed and inputted into a storage contract and then resolves to the name to the address. So what is 4834 doing? It says any program that resolves domains should treat domains as equivalent to their resolved addresses. So in practice, this means users of dApps that implement these EIPs name resolution.
What's the number again? Sorry.
It's 4834. It's probably like a trivial thing, but it sounds like ENS does some maybe step that was necessary at the time, but now is obsolete.
So I think this, my somewhat naive impression of the CIP is it's like ENS, you're right, it doesn't, the end result is that you can resolve Stephen.eth to an address, but there's two steps to get there. And so first it converts Stephen.eth into what they call a node. So it's this long hash. And then it takes that hash and maps it to an address. So there's kind of a go between. I think what this EIP is saying is instead of doing that mapping, we're just trying to take the string itself directly to an address. So that's kind of one part. And the other big piece here is doing generic access control. So with ENS, you have a controller and a registrant. And so basically one address can do all actions for an ENS name. And I think this EIP lets you break down different actions like create, read, update, delete. You could assign those to different addresses or different controllers, if you will.
Okay, cool. All right, so this one's really cool. EIP 5006 rental NFT user extension. I think this is awesome because it basically lets you rent out your NFT, so there's an income stream there. And so John, Brock, and I are working with a company that's focused around NFT art and artists. And what I learned, this isn't what they're doing, but basically, if you own an art studio, you go and you get permission from the artist to display that art. So like Art Basel is going on right now. Let's say, you've got something from maybe Banksy did something. They have to go and get permission. But what I think would be really cool is if Banksy would rent out his art or their art to, the studio. And then they've got a new income stream. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
So how does the EIP take into account time? Because if it's been a while since I wrote a smart contract, but it can't dynamically get the current time. How does the expiration component work?
So it's funny you say that. There's an EIP around this time issue. I'll find it. It's in the ones that are being voted on right now, or that are going to pass soon. Here, you guys.
I think also for this EIP, John, it's not, if I'm reading this right, it's not that when the grant or the rental period expires, I don't think any state changes. It's just if you call the function, it can compare the current block time with the expiry time.
Interesting. So it's a little hacky because it's not that granular because
It's the same. It's the same thing as if you were to have a state value. Because with a state value, you still have a getter. This is just a dynamic getter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this one's being voted on now?
Yeah. Well, it's in the last call. So
yeah.
And then so the EIP 5007 time NFT, so time extension. So I think this, and I actually have no idea. You guys could tell me this means something completely different, but this may be why this NFT or why this EIP exists is because of that time window that you're talking about. But anyway, this is a small. They don't have much in the because the abstract is just basically this is an extension of 721. It proposes some additional functions, start and end time, to help with on-chain time management. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think they're all semi-unrelated. But it's actually
anyway.
Maybe not. I think it's the same authors.
I think there's some cool things you could do to get income. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a restaurant. I wish I could think of it. It's in New York City. It's like a restaurant club that you have to be a part of, and so they're going to issue the memberships in NFTs. Well, if you don't want to sell your membership, but you're not in New York and you don't use it that often, you could rent it out to people, sort of like an Airbnb. And I think that would be pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, even from a security standpoint. So if you have a really expensive NFT, you usually want to keep that on a cold storage wallet. But in order to use that NFT, say there's like a utility or you can claim a ticket to an event with it, you then have to either move it to a hot wallet or sign something with that cold storage wallet. So you kind of open yourself up a little bit to security holes. So being able to almost rent it to yourself, so like rent it to another hot wallet that you control, could be really powerful.
Yeah, that would be cool. And sort of along all of these lines is 5496, so multi-privilege. So this isn't renting it out, but this is hey John, you're gonna fly United. Here's my United membership NFT. I'm not gonna charge you for it, but I could loan it out to you. I wonder why they just didn't combine these NFTs. I mean these EIPs. I guess it's cleaner to keep them separate.
Separation of concerns, because if one gets voted and the other one doesn't,
Yeah. Anyway, I think that this stuff around NFTs, I think that I think we're going to see we're working with a couple of companies that are actually building stuff right now, but mostly in the virtual world. They're not really. I think in the next cycle we'll see some physical use of NFTs in the real world. Whether it's like the restaurant example or maybe we'll see a couple of institutions or airlines or I don't know, concert venues adopt some of this stuff. Are there any other EIPs that I missed that you guys wanted to touch on? Because I think we only went through my list.
There was one, if I could find it. Give me a second here. It was around royalties.
So John, Brock told me that I thought that there was already these royalties in place, and it's done on like a trust system right now. This is the way that Brock, you explained it, right?
Yeah, it's up to the marketplace to implement. There's not most NFT contracts don't have any baked in royalty mechanism. So it's like whatever exchange you're purchasing an NFT through usually has like a royalty baked into their exchange contract, but it's not part of the token collection itself.
Right. Which is crazy. So this is EIP 2981. So the idea is that you would have payouts based on percentage calculations to a single address, and it would use the existing transfer from. So it would actually allow kind of artists to kind of it requires less gas at the end of the day. It requires less effort to get paid out royalties, because then, to Brock's point, you don't need like a separate contract, and it becomes a standard, pretty much a standard interface for those contracts. So you would have the kind of the token ID, sale price, and the royalty amount, and I believe the royalty amount has to be a percentage, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and if I'm reading it right, 2981 is just that's the standard for fetching the royalty information, right? So like an exchange to use it to implement royalties.
Yeah. Right. So they don't actually have to bake their own. They could just call it. And as long as it has that royalty standard baked into the NFT, then it's easier just to call it and determine if royalties are enabled.
Yep. Well, and so I think with there's another one, 4910, that is actually baking in the logic for royalties into a contract. So they're trying to extend the ERC 721 NFT contract so that because it's a whole bunch of drama. Nobody knows about NFT royalties right now, with a bunch of exchanges trying to like either get rid of them or change them.
I mean, why wouldn't you have it and then just set it to 0 if you didn't want to use it?
That's what everyone's arguing, or everybody who's not on an exchange, I guess. I don't know. It's wild.
Royalties are it's a pain in the neck if you have to pay them, but they're great if you get to issue them. I mean, if you get to collect them, and it seems like it would make sense to have just written the contract, but I don't know.
That's not simple enough.
All right. Well, so John, you said that what are they called? Filed for bankruptcy?
BlockFi.
Dun dun dun.
Yep.
This
another one bites the dust.
Saga continues. Now we have to see what happens with Barry Silbert's firm. Yeah, Genesis. Cool. Well, this was fun. EIPs looks like there's some good stuff that's about to pass. We'll come back to Soulbound. I think we should dive into that because a lot of people don't like them because you can't 100x them, right? There's no,
really?
Yeah. Well, because the really short version of the Soulbound NFT is that once it's minted or assigned to an address, you can't transfer it. So it's non-transferable.
So it would be like your birth certificate,
birth
certificate, or your social credit score, or
yes, it wouldn't work well for art, but it would work really well for digital identities, or like proof of humanity, for instance.
But how's that work? Because information changes. Like my driver's license, my driver's license is the same, but the metadata changes. Can you change the metadata? Like if I get bigger, I get taller. Like, can you change that?
Yeah, I mean, metadata is not generally on chain anyways. That's all off chain.
Okay.
But like your blood type, that could go in there. Color of your eyes.
I'm pretty sure blood type doesn't change. I hope blood type. Well, some people's eyes change.
Social security number, whatever it might be. Even if it's just like a hash of all that goes on chain as part of the NFT.
I would be surprised if all of our social security numbers weren't on some private blockchain right now. I mean, that would be like, what is the government doing?
The government probably just has them in like CSV files somewhere.
Plain text.
Yep.
Some file somewhere.
Sitting on a tape drive.
Yep. So unencrypted server.
Oh.
With a root password, all ports open.
Yep.
All right, cool. This has been fun.
Security through obscurity.
This has been fun. This has been fun. Check out or go to support. Go with the email. Hello at missinglinks.fm. Give us some feedback or don't. And we'll be back next week.